But first of all, I hear there are more Americans than ever moving to France because they like the lifestyle.
Et vous faites ça depuis combien d'années?
Alors, on fait ça depuis 25 ans.
C'est une des plus grosses manifestations de France. J'assiste beaucoup là-dessus parce que c'est un bric-à-brac d'un très bon niveau.
Hi guys, welcome to this episode of Summer Festivals in Charente on Touing Backroads France. Today we'll go and visit two brocantes, also called bric-à-brac. We call them flea markets in the States. These two took place in rural towns here in the summer. One in Marsac, along a beautiful, calm and cool setting in the valley of the Charente River. And the other in the village, which dare not be mispronounced by English speakers, called Fouquer. In France, brocanting is a national tradition, with a large number of them around the country throughout the year, especially in the warmer months. That brings us to today's trivia question. Approximately how many brocantes do you think take place in France every year? At the end of this episode, I'll give you that number, plus a little context and explanation about the data, and the sources involved in calculating it. Brocantes are interesting for a number of reasons. They're as much about social contact and community as they are about buying and selling. Basically, they're popular because there's something for everybody. Usually visiting them is free, although there are some exceptions. We'll look at one of those here, which is in Marsac. It's one of the largest in France, costs €3 for entry, and takes place the first weekend in September every year along the riverbanks of the Charente near Angoulême. As we'll learn, there's a justifiable reason such a large event requires a cover charge. This year, over 750 vendors, both professionals and private sellers, came to the two-day event. Obviously, weather plays a key role as it is completely outdoors. People often camp on site as they come from far away, and everything is laid out for people to browse and stroll through the acres of displays. A lot of times these events will also include farmers markets, classic car shows, or other types of entertainment. Each brocante is a little different. I stopped into Marsac on Saturday, August 30th, and talked to Bernard Bougie, a brocanteur and active local resident in Angoulême, who has been participating and managing different events for over 3 decades.
Je suis donc au bric-à-brac de Marsac. Et est-ce que vous voulez vous présenter rapidement pour notre chaîne YouTube?
Oui, bonjour. Donc, je suis le vice-président du bric-à-brac de Marsac. Et je m'occupe de Marsac déjà depuis un certain nombre d'années. Et ça fait quasiment 40 ans que je viens sur ce haut lieu de la Chine, qui est une des plus grosses manifestations de France.
Et ça se passe toujours le premier week-end de septembre?
Alors, Marsac est toujours le premier week-end de septembre. C'est la 47e édition. On n'a pas pu le faire pendant 2 ans à cause du Covid, donc c'est toujours le premier week-end de septembre. Voilà.
Et souvent, les gens, ils peuvent être un peu étonnés parce que l'entrée est payante. Alors, combien ça coûte l'entrée et est-ce que vous pouvez en dire peut-être 2 mots sur l'entrée?
Alors, l'entrée est payante parce qu'il faut savoir que c'est une manifestation donc, qui est organisée. Nous sommes une association, nous sommes tous bénévoles, je précise, il n'y a pas une seule personne qui est payée. Sachant que nous devons louer les terrains. Je vous donne un aperçu vite fait. On loue les terrains au niveau sécurité. On a des agents de sécurité, il faut des secouristes. Il faut monter et démonter le pont qui est derrière moi, la passerelle sur le bras de la Charente et les remonter. Il faut refaire toutes les cabanes, il faut installer les buvettes. Après, enfin, il y a énormément de choses qui font qu'il y a la publicité locale, régionale et nationale. Donc, c'est un budget relativement conséquent.
C'est un gros travail en amont.
Nous avons un cabinet comptable. Donc, si on fait payer 3 € l'entrée, c'est qu'on est obligé vis-à-vis du coût engendré par les manifestations. Les terrains sur lesquels nous nous trouvons, ils sont tous loués à des propriétaires terriens. Voilà.
Très bien, merci. Et ce qui peut aussi étonner souvent, c'est le nombre d'exposants. Combien vous avez compté cette année d'exposants?
Alors, cette année, à 10h ce matin, nous étions à plus de 750 exposants.
Voilà. Donc,
sachant qu'il y a de nouveaux exposants qui sont arrivés, qui n'ont pas été comptabilisés encore. J'ai pas eu les chiffres exacts. Mais voilà, donc c'est pour ça. Donc, on a des exposants qui viennent de toute France, de toute la France. Nous avons des Belges, des Anglais, des Espagnols. Et au niveau des visiteurs, nous avons des visiteurs qui viennent de France et même de beaucoup plus loin encore.
on trouve de tout ici.
Ah oui, alors bric-à-brac de Marsac, vous allez trouver des choses à 10 centimes d'euros jusqu'à plusieurs dizaines de milliers d'euros, suivant la marchandise, suivant si c'est des particuliers ou des professionnels, sachant qu'il y a beaucoup de professionnels. J'assiste beaucoup là-dessus parce que c'est un bric-à-brac d'un très bon niveau. Il y a très peu de gens qui vendent des vêtements et autres. C'est un bric-à-brac, surtout si on veut attirer du monde qui vienne de la France entière. Je crois qu'il faut cibler sur la qualité et la quantité de la belle marchandise ancienne. Voilà. Donc il y a de tout. C'est avant tout que des choses d'occasion. Il n'y a pas de marchandise neuve. Voilà.
Très bien. Et donc vous avez dit il y a beaucoup d'anglophones ou de personnes qui parlent anglais en général dans la région.
Tout à fait. Alors dans toutes les clientèles de brocante de la région, là, je parle de la Charente en gros, il y a énormément d'anglais qui ont beaucoup investi, certains dans des maisons ou dans des granges en Charente, parce que je pense que pour eux le climat et le coût est sûrement moins cher qu'en Angleterre. Et puis même ils ont une certaine qualité de vie qu'ils apprécient beaucoup. Ils aiment beaucoup les produits locaux, le cognac et autres. J'en passe des meilleurs.
Très bien, c'est très intéressant. Et peut-être 2 mots sur votre marché à Angoulême.
Le marché donc à Angoulême, alors c'est le marché des brocanteurs à Angoulême qui existe place Mulac, tout près autour d'une église sous un marché couvert que j'ai créé en 1990 avec une équipe. Donc on est tous bénévoles. Moi je suis le président de cette association et nous avons entre 40, 50, 60 marchands suivant les mois qui viennent de différentes régions du Grand Sud-Ouest, Nouvelle-Aquitaine. Et je précise, ce n'est que de la brocante de professionnels. Voilà. Okay. Et absolument de tout. Là, on a de bouquinistes, disquaires, artisans, tapissiers, restaurateurs de canage, paillage, disquaires, numismates, enfin différentes professions qui touchent au domaine de l'occasion.
Super.
Voilà.
Eh ben, merci beaucoup de votre temps et de nos échanges aujourd'hui. Et je vous souhaite surtout une bonne continuation pour ce week-end, parce qu'on est qu'au début, samedi, et il y a encore demain également.
Il y a encore demain. Et merci beaucoup, puis au plaisir de venir nous voir. On vous accueillera avec grand plaisir.
Merci.
Merci.
Along with the organizers, the event brings together a fair number of English-speaking visitors, such as Vance Whittle, who was kind enough to say a few words for the channel about his experiences in France.
Would you like to introduce yourself for my YouTube channel?
Yeah, I'm Vance Whittle. I'm an antique dealer. We're here at the Brocante at Marsac. It's very hot today, and we've been selling all kinds of objets d'art and antiques. And this fair happens once a year, and it's a very popular fair with traders and public alike. And I think everybody's had a good time. It gives you a chance to sell things, buy things, and meet up with old friends.
Great.
It's a good place.
And obviously, I was interested in talking with you because you're an English speaker.
Right.
So could you say, where you're from, what brought you to France? And
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm originally from England, obviously. I've got a French wife. We decided to come over after Brexit because we didn't really like the political atmosphere in the country. We moved to Wyon, which is a town that we discovered because it's Jumelé, twinned with the place that we used to live in England. And we bought a project there, a house that it was in rapid need of repair. And we did that all through COVID, through confinement. It really helped us because we could do that. But then we decided it was a bit too small and we felt a bit hemmed in. So we bought another house just outside Wyon, a farmhouse with a bit more land. and a couple of barns, so I could carry on with the stuff. You know, my wife was not very happy, but we carried on. And now it's come to a period in our lives. I'm going to be 70, you know, next year, and it's time to say, pull the plug. You know, we've had enough.
And what got you into brocanting and sort of doing these types of markets?
Oh, well, I mean, it's always a good way of finding new clients, selling stuff to clients that you've known from before, private people. It gives you a whole range, a whole gamut of people, you know. So it gives you a very good opportunity to buy and sell. I mean, in this market today, you'll probably find anything you're looking for, even modern things, you know. You can buy everything from wine to umbrellas, from enamelled pots to, you know, furniture, not anything.
Yeah.
You can furnish a home, more interestingly, and for far less money than you can at IKEA.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my impression too. It's just a real wealth of different things.
Well, I mean, there's a whole wealth of stuff. You're always going to find in a place like this something eventually that sort of captures your heart, you know, whether it's a chair that you want for your bedroom, whether it's a vase that you really like, whether it's an album by your favourite rock star you've been looking
music
for
stuff.
forever.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a piece for your car that you've been looking at forever, you've got a very good chance of finding it in a place like this. You know?
Absolutely. And maybe one last question.
Yeah.
Any advice for people that would think about coming to France to live? In your experience, is there
Well,
anything?
it depends where they're coming from. But first of all, I hear there are more Americans than ever moving to France because they like the lifestyle. It's obviously a more relaxed lifestyle. It's probably equally difficult with bureaucracy because the French are renowned for it. But the actual lifestyle, the cost of living here is not that expensive. The people are extremely friendly. And as you can see today, the weather's very good.
Yes. Yeah, the climate is a big part of it too.
Very agreeable.
Great.
Especially the further south you get.
Yeah.
And maybe not too close to the Mediterranean.
Great.
But no, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, when they question people across Europe who are happy, the French never say they're happy compared to some of the Scandinavians. And I always think, well, the Scandinavians live up north in the dark. The French live in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. They very rarely go on holiday anywhere else. I mean, a lot of French people holiday in France. I think it says everything you need, you know.
Yeah.
If you're fed up with the country you're in, for whatever reason, come and try France. It's a great life.
Yeah.
Steve, who you met earlier, has been here 30 years. We've only been here 5.5 years this time. Then we lived here for 6 years in the 90s, but we had to move back for family reasons. And we're very happy.
Yeah, great.
All good.
That's all really interesting stuff. So thanks, Vance, for taking the time to talk to us today.
More than welcome. And
All
good
right.
luck with your YouTube channel.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
In a nearby village, at the height of August, an event is organized in Fouquier. I like to share this picture around with people who don't speak French, just to see how they would propose to pronounce such an ambiguous backroads place. Usually it gets a few smiles. Anyway, it's pronounced Fouquier. A small village between Aix and Morne, this brocante is also a major classic car gathering during the summer. Dozens of vehicles converge here from many different vintages, as well as hundreds of vendors. Weather permitting, this is also an outstanding event to visit. Finally, I wanted to take a minute to mention the local producers markets. These take place here and there across Charente during the summer. I've done a few videos about them already. If you're interested, you should check them out in the Summer Festivals playlist. All of the vendors have unique and interesting stories to tell. One of them, Gilbert Guiton, talked to me briefly about his many years in the cognac trade.
Est-ce que vous voulez vous présenter pour la...
Alors, monsieur et madame Guiton, on n'est plus les gérants, on est les parents du gérant de la SCEA Les Bordeaux, qui sont viticulteurs vendeurs directs de 20 pays de Pinot et de Cognac dans la région de Barbezieux, située en Sud-Charente, dans le cru Petite Champagne de Cognac.
Et vous faites ça depuis combien d'années?
Alors on fait ça depuis 25 ans.
25 ans,
Voilà.
super. Et que dans la région charentaise?
Alors on fait des foires et des salons en France,
D'accord,
hors région, et puis on fait beaucoup de marchés en Charente et on essaie de vendre notre production sur les Charentes.
d'accord.
C'est une production locale. Les 20 pays, c'est une production locale.
Et les marchés, vous les faites uniquement en saison d'été ou...
Oui, alors saison d'été et on fait un marché hebdomadaire tous les samedis où j'habite.
D'accord, voilà. Ok, super. Merci beaucoup.
I hope you've enjoyed this brief tour of flea markets in southwestern France. Keep in mind these take place across the country year-round and are a cherished tradition in France. That brings us to the answer to today's trivia question. According to a number of different sources, the total number of annual outdoor brocantes in France exceeds 50,000. This is an estimation, of course, and every market is a little bit different. The TLDR is basically, if you're in France, outside of Paris, and want to have a unique experience, go visit one of these locally. Usually they're listed by department online with an indication of how many vendors will be there. They can also get canceled last minute due to weather or organizational changes. If you want to look it up, find the number of the department you're in, look online, and search for Brocante and the number of your department. As always with this channel, if you enjoy this content, and it's not too much to ask, I'd appreciate a like. To stay current with my publications, it's also good to subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated.